paint peeling off them old brick signs. Folks work hard, keep their heads down, trying to hold on to better times. Used to leave your door unlocked at night. Now everybody's got a camera on. Still got faith if we get it right, we can fix what's gone wrong. Ain't about talk, ain't about show. It's about the way we live, the way we know. Let's get back to dirt roads, back to porch lights. Neighbors standing up when it ain't polite. Cold beer, hard true stars up above. A little less noise and a whole lot of love. Red, white, blue ain't a trend we chase. It's sweat on your shirt and calloused hands grace. If we're gonna stand, we don't stand apart. We gotta get back to heart. By the water line, kids still laughing like nothing's changed. But there's a whole lot of talk on the screen these days, and not enough folks saying it face to face. We ain't perfect, never claimed to be, but we know what matters when the dust all clears. It's family, friends, and a little dignity, and standing strong through the years. Ain't about left, ain't about right. It's about showing up when it's time to fight. Let's get back to dirt roads, back to porch lights. Neighbors standing up when it ain't polite. Cold beer, heart true stars up above. A little less noise and a whole lot of love. Red, white, blue ain't a trend we chase. Sweat on your shirt and calloused hands grace. If we're gonna stand, we don't stand apart. We gotta get back to heart. Ain't no filter, ain't no spin, just who we are and where we've been. If you fall down, we pull you up. That's the kind of country built on us. Let's get back to dirt roads, back porch lights. Neighbors standing up, yeah, ready to fight. Cold beer, heart true stars up above. A little less talk and a whole lot of love. Red, white, blue ain't a flag you fold. It's a way of life and a code we hold. If we're gonna stand, we don't stand apart. We gotta get back, yeah, back to heart. Yeah, back to us. Woo! Back to us.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Apex News Above the Noise. I am Kyle Thompson.
And I'm Craig Blanton.
We are joined tonight by one of our good friends, John Hibbard. John, how are we doing tonight?
Doing well, guys. How are y'all doing?
Doing great. Hey, we like that big bird you got over your left shoulder there.
Actually, that's Big Earn. Big Earn's with me. So,
well, thanks for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate it. We got a bunch of stories tonight, Craig and John. I think this is going to keep things pretty interesting. We might as well just call this one Controversy Thursday or something.
Well, I'm telling you, God,
seems like everyone we have tonight is controversial. But we will start tonight. Our first story tonight takes us to Texas, where political shockwaves continue to spread following comments from Texas 35th Congressional District Democratic candidate, say that 5 times fast, Maureen Galindo. Galindo has come under enormous scrutiny after social media posts and statements in which she discussed turning the Carnes ICE detention facility into what she described as a prison for American Zionists and former ICE officers, along with other inflammatory remarks that critics across the political spectrum immediately condemned as anti-Semitic and extreme. And this story didn't stay confined to conservative media circles like some other stories that we've seen in the past. The reaction from Democrats was immediate, and it has been severe. House Democrat leadership, moderates, progressives, and even some of the party's most outspoken left-wing voices rapidly moved to distance themselves from Galindo. Reports indicate that figures ranging from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, that's one of your favorites, Craig's, to members like Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, publicly denounced the rhetoric. Republicans obviously condemned the comments as well, but what's drawing the most attention tonight is the loudest pushback, and it may actually be coming from Galindo's own party. Representative Jared Moskowitz and Representative Josh Gottheimer have now escalated things dramatically. The two released a joint statement saying that if Galindo were ever elected to Congress, they would move to expel her, and not just once. In fact, according to their statement, they would force an expulsion vote every single day. Gottheimer reportedly called her views straight out of the Nazi playbook. Now, there's an important reality check here for viewers. Expelling a member from Congress is extraordinarily difficult and rare. It requires a 2/3 vote in the House of Representatives. So even Moskowitz and Gottheimer were serious about bringing repeated votes. Such a move would require broad bipartisan support to actually succeed. But politically, the point may be larger than the procedural reality, in that Democrats appear to be trying to make a statement that they do not want this to become attached to the broader party brand heading into a critical election cycle. Adding another wrinkle, reports have surfaced suggesting that a GOP-linked political organization may have spent heavily helping elevate Galindo in the race, prompting accusations that Republicans saw a controversial candidate as politically useful. Now, here's the question for both of you guys. We'll start with you, Craig. Are we watching legitimate bipartisan rejection of extremism, or are we watching another example of political parties selectively deciding when controversial rhetoric becomes acceptable?
Yeah. As of, let's see, what today's Thursday, it's Tuesday. This lady is leading the election primary polls.
Yeah, well, she actually won. She's advancing to a runoff, right? She has 29% of the vote, and she is.
June, I think, isn't it? Lost you. Everybody's froze on my end. Can you hear me now? Technical difficulties. Darn, we ain't had this in a while. John, you there?
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, John. You hear me?
I can.
I can.
Hey, thank you
I
guys.
can hear everybody.
Thank you guys for hanging with us. We actually are having some pretty bad weather in Frankfurt, so we'll see if that is
Okay.
part of the reason that this is happening. But
So,
she's actually leading in the Democrat. She finished first in the original, and then she's moving on to the primary runoff.
with the guy she called a traitor.
Yeah. So
I mean, she wants to arrest him and charge him with treason.
this is going to be quite a scenario coming up.
And so today, all the big Democrats were that were interviewed on TV were either silent or blaming Republicans for this Democrat lady winning the primary or being in the top two and going on to the June runoff in Texas. Now, how they can blame Republicans for them recruiting or whatever they did to get her in the race, and then when she wins and all her comments from the past come forward, just like they did with Graham Platner, who I'm sure we're going to talk about later, now they're all running away from her. But this is obviously accepted in the Texas 35th, or she wouldn't be leading.
Yeah, it's also reminiscent of what's happening up in northern Kentucky, where right now, and even throughout all of Kentucky, there are Democrats and Republicans alike very upset that Thomas Massie lost his race, and a lot of them are saying that there was outside money coming in. But majority of Thomas Massie's money came from Democrat supporters. So this is not something new.
Groups, Democrat groups.
Yeah, this is not something that is happening in a vacuum. This has happened for many, many years. I joked the other night that I was going to donate to AOC's presidential campaign
Right.
because I want to keep her in there as long as possible. But this has happened for a very long time. I mean, you want your adversaries to elect somebody who is unelectable in a general election. John, your thoughts on this crazy political fight?
It's nothing but it's taken a play out of the playbook of the Democrats. I mean, they did this, in 2018, in 2020, 2022. They did it in all the elections as far as getting Republican candidates that they knew had, difficult backgrounds, backing them through the primaries. And it's just so stereotypical of the Democrat Party to get upset when it is done back to them from what they've done. For the last 2 years, they've done nothing but anti-Semitic stuff for the last year. And now we're in election season. And I think they have opinions on issues that are well in the 80-20 on the 20 side of it. And I think this is what you get. You get something like this, but blaming the Republican Party for somebody being successful, like Craig said, they had to come up with her. Now, granted, I think kind of the vetting system we had before, I think as Republicans, we've gotten a lot better in a vetting system of getting better candidates out there, because in primaries, it got exposed of doing this exact same thing. So, it's hard to blame the Republicans for something that they started. I mean,
well,
really.
and I think the other interesting thing about this, and we will talk about Graham Platner here in a second, Craig, but one of the things that is very interesting to me is you have had now going on 8 years. We had an interruption in there, but going on 8 years now where every single thing that President Trump or the Republican side does is then countered with you're a Nazi and a fascist.
Right.
And then at the same time they're saying you're a Nazi and a fascist, then they turn around and say you're bought and paid for by Israel, which the dichotomy of political views that are being spewed out by your mainstream media, The View, they don't even know what they're talking about, because someone's a neo-Nazi, but they're also bought and paid for by Israel. That doesn't make sense. Okay, it's literally counterintuitive, and yet that's exactly what is happening here. But I'll go back to this: is first of all, you can't say your political opponent, is a racist and a fascist and all these things, and not expect there to misogynist, and not expect there to be blowback on the individual that you're saying about. But also in your own party, you're not protecting those and having a common sense approach to protecting those individuals. We're having discussions right now that we're going to get rid of American Zionists. I can't even fathom that in today's ideology. This is something straight out of Rockwell when he ran in the 60s. This is something that he would come up with, the American Nazi leader, and I can't imagine that people in Texas are going to enjoy hearing this from their leading Democrat candidate.
I mean, when you hear people out there that are actively going against the United States, that speak out openly against the United States and say that, all the crazy things of ours, like every time that a Republican is elected, it's the downfall of democracy. It's over every time. When, in this last election, I talked to quite a few people in the presidential election. I said, listen, write down your concerns, write down the top 5 or 10 things that you have. Democracy is going to be gone. We're going to have a dictator, all these different things, and see how many of those things are true after 4 years. And, again, when you look at the No Kings rally, look at that. At least we had a primary and put somebody in there. They literally appointed their candidates. And then have had no Kings rally since. Where did it come through?
They haven't gone through the presidential process the last 2 times that they've had the opportunity.
Crazy.
Go all the way back to Obama in 2008, after he made his speech on the floor of the Democratic convention. He was selected. Then, and then Hillary was selected. Then Joe Biden was selected. Then Kamala Harris got in without a single vote being cast for her. So it's far from the Republican Party being selected kings when every presidential candidate on the Democrat side has been hand selected.
Yeah.
But the spewing of hate after a certain period of time. I mean, it's one thing if it happens once or twice, and it's one or two people. But when you have networks that have almost worked together in a news network that people get all their news from, and it's constant of, this person's a downfall to democracy, and this person, there's people out there that hear voices and be like, you know what, I can save the country.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happened, I think.
It's absolutely
I mean, it's been absolutely, it's just the violence that has been brought apart. I mean, look at who had violence in the cities. It wasn't Republicans.
Yeah.
And everything that we've had. I don't remember Republicans burning cities to the ground.
Yeah.
Well, and I got plenty of pictures from back then showing, remember the CNN one where guy said it's a calm protest, and in the background, all those buildings are burning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mostly peaceful protest, right, Kyle?
That's
mostly peaceful protest while downtown Minneapolis is burning.
I said last night, and we'll talk about Minnesota here again in a second, but I feel so bad for the common people in Minnesota who have struggled with over the last few years.
Yeah, they've had 2 breaking news items in the last 30 minutes.
Yeah. So I will move on to the second story tonight. We're going to head northeast to another race that is becoming one of the most fascinating and controversial Senate battles in America, because in Maine, Democrats may have found a candidate who is breaking nearly every traditional rule of politics. I mean, literally everyone. The conventional wisdom in politics says controversy kills campaigns, but in Maine, that script appears to be getting ripped up. Democrat Senate candidate Graham Platner, the former Maine oysterman and political outsider, challenging longtime Republican Senator Susan Collins, continues to gain momentum despite a steady stream of controversy surrounding his campaign and past statements. Recent polling now shows Platner actually leading Collins in several surveys. A new Pan-Atlantic research poll released this week has Platner leading Senator Collins by 7 points. That's particularly notable because Collins has spent decades surviving difficult political environments and building a reputation as one of the most resilient Republicans in the Senate, Republican by name only, usually. Even broader polling averages have shown a similar pattern, with Platner maintaining an advantage roughly 6 to 8 points at this point. But the race is getting attention for much more than polling numbers. Platner has been hit by controversy over old social media activity and Reddit posts, including crude and offensive comments, allegations surrounding a tattoo that critics said resembled Nazi imagery, and prior comments that generated accusations of racist, sexist, and homophobic rhetoric. Platner has pushed back, describing much of the online content as internet, what he calls crap posting, and saying the tattoo was a mistake from years earlier that has since been altered. What's interesting tonight is the reaction from Democratic leadership. Unlike the immediate and forceful condemnation we discussed in our previous story, Democratic leaders appear to be taking a much more cautious approach with Platner. Reports indicate Democratic National Committee leadership characterized some of the material as, quote, hurtful, but stopped short of demanding he exit the race or disavowing his candidacy outright. Meanwhile, some national Democrats have actually rallied around him. Senators like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
Well, Elizabeth Warren today, she dodged a question as she was walking in somewhere, but Bernie's standing with him 100%.
Yeah, well, good socialists always do that. While his campaign has reportedly generated major volunteer energy and fundraising enthusiasm, and to get to what many political observers are now asking, why isn't this hurting him? Some analysts argue Platner has tapped into a broader anti-establishment mood among voters. One national report described him as channeling, quote, raw American frustration, unquote, while others have noted that voters increasingly appear willing to overlook candidate flaws if they believe a candidate is authentic or speaks directly to economic frustrations. Others say the dynamic may be less about Platner himself and more about Senator Collins. Susan Collins has historically survived by presenting herself as an independent Republican voice willing to break with her party, but critics argue that that image no longer carries the weight in today's political climate. Democrats increasingly view this seat as one of their best pickup opportunities in the country. And here's where the conversation gets uncomfortable. If controversial statements are disqualifying in one race, should they be disqualifying in every race? Because voters in Maine appear to be saying something very different than political operatives in Texas at this point. I just want to get back to the one thing that I just read up at the top and was discussing, is that one national report, I think it came from the Washington Post, described him as channeling, quote, raw American frustration,
Right.
and that candidates are willing to, or that voters are willing to overlook candidate flaws if they believe a candidate is authentic or speaks directly to economic frustration. Is that not what Donald Trump did to the Republican Party? I mean, that's exactly what he did. It's raw American frustration with the political systems, and yet when it happened with him, people are saying he's reckless, he is a danger to democracy, he's all these terrible things, and Republicans said, "We're willing to overlook his flaws. He doesn't speak well sometimes. He is on Twitter way too much and on Truth Social way too much. You know, he has all these questionable background. We don't care because he gets things done that will shake up the establishment." And now that Graham Platner's doing this, it's interesting to me to see Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren saying, "Oh, it's just a broad frustration with, you know, the political process." That's exactly what Republicans said for the last 10 years about Donald Trump. I guess I don't understand the difference. What do you guys think?
John, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's Trump make America great again. All of a sudden, immediately was put as he's a white nationalist. That
Yep.
that was made immediately that all he cares about is a white nationalist. So I think when you have somebody saying, "Oh, he's just in frustration with the system," I mean, this guy sounds like he really may be a fringe person out there. I mean, Trump was just a businessman. I mean, most of the time in his life he's been a Democrat more than he's been a Republican. But I totally agree with Kyle. It was a frustration with the system, was how it was frustrating for everybody to see that Hillary Clinton was getting ready to be our next anointed president, and that's how Trump came to office. I mean,
Yeah.
it's exactly, but raw emotion was what got us there, of just the complete frustration and seeing the breakdown of the system and seeing that she may be leading us was exactly how he got there.
I will also say real quick, Craig, one of the
Mhm.
things that is interesting to me is it appears that the Maine Republicans were fine with Susan Collins, very much unlike what happened in Northern Kentucky. Had they ran somebody against Susan Collins that was maybe a little anti-establishment, but had good solid ideas, but they didn't run anybody against her, and so
Well, go back to the picture where you had the two pictures on top of each other with the Maine governor.
Mhm.
Governor Mills was running against him, and everybody recall she had that interaction with the president when he had the governor's conference at the White House. But she couldn't raise enough money to run against Graham Platner, Mr. Nazi guy. So she bowed out, saying she couldn't raise enough campaign funds. Now, remember back when Pete Hegseth was getting confirmed, and they talked about the Jerusalem cross on the center of his chest?
Yeah.
I think it's the center or his right pec.
Yeah.
That went on for 2 weeks. It was the end of the world. He was racist, all this stuff. Now you got the ultimate racist tattoo. And this guy is leading the Democrat Senate race in Maine.
I think they're stuck. I think they're stuck. They don't have anybody else to run.
Well, when
I think they're
the
stuck.
governor dropped out, who stood up to Trump, and that's why she was running. So now they got this man's man. This guy served 4 tours of duty, even though he's getting smoked for all his Reddit comments. So he went and deleted them. He chastised Chris Kyle. Remember American Sniper, the movie that they made about him? He chastised him, saying that the reason he got his count up, his sniper count up, was he was shooting civilians and said they were easy targets. And then he also attacked another sniper that was hit 4 times on a mission and said he shouldn't be walking. It's just because the Taliban were bad shooters.
Yeah. I mean, this
guy, he's out of control. And the lady in Texas 35, she is out of control, and they're just letting it ride. And they're both leading. That's the thing. They're both leading their races.
I think the difference between Platner and the situation in Texas is that area, it was expected to be a Democrat win, and they believed that they would win that, and now they're kind of like, we may win this and cause us more problems than we need to. There's somebody in second place that we could probably get behind and put that there. Graham Platner, there is nobody else. There is no other Democrat they could throw in the race right now.
They know Republicans will use those two against them and won't be able to achieve what Timu Obama wants, is to be Speaker of the House so bad so that he can. So what?
He can taste it.
Yeah. Oh, it's
close,
so bad he can taste it, and he wants to impeach Trump at 12:01 or 12 o'clock and 15 seconds.
Yeah.
After he takes control, that's what he's so tore up about. And today he also did. He said when asked about Graham Platner, he said, "Well, I haven't seen the videos.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the Reddit comments." Well, he's got staff that is supposed to put news clips in front of him every morning. All the politicians do that across the country, even our local politicians. They get news clips of what was said about city, county, state, or federal stuff, depending on what office they got. So they just either outright walk by you, like Chuck Schumer did and Collins did, and don't answer these questions to the public who before they were supporting these people before all the background came out. So they didn't do any research.
But here, that's the thing that I don't understand, because even if you've run in local offices, everybody, I mean, your local paper, they all do backgrounds. This guy wasn't hiding the fact, and there's videos on TikTok and X and everything of this
everywhere.
guy just being an idiot. And that's his right. He has every right to be an idiot. You can drink and act up and do whatever you want, but we reserve, political office, especially those highest in the land, to mean a little bit more, and you don't want those people being the ones acting like idiots. I mean, they're going off on. I watched Saturday Night Live just to see what humor they present as humor, but it's not all that funny. And they talk about Pete Hegseth like he is just the biggest drunk in the entire world, and yet you've got Graham Platner running for Senate in Maine, and he is an idiot, drinking and acting up and all these things. There's actual video evidence of it, as opposed to.
And Hegseth is a war hero with multiple Bronze Stars and other military awards, and I'm sure Platner's got them too. But then also look under the text of Platner, y'all. Ruben Gallego. Now we remember who he is, don't we, Kyle?
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's Eric Swalwell's roomie,
best friend.
So he's back in Platner. Elizabeth Warren. They'll show this little short video all the time where she's up on stage giving you a big hug, ear to ear smiles, but now she's running away from him.
Well, she has to. I just can't believe these people didn't do any type of vetting, especially considering what this guy has.
I think he's as liberal as he is. I think he just qualifies. I think I think they're like, there's nobody else. There's nobody else they can go to. So, and with Maine leaning as much as it does, I think they're like, we might be able to push this guy through, if we can just try to downplay it, because, none of the major news networks are going to put all that stuff out there. It's going to obviously be investigative journalists and stuff like that, which, they try to discredit all the time. Right. No, I think he's all they have. I think that's why.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting if you're a political junkie to watch those two races. Plus, up in Minnesota, they've got a guy that says he's a physician, a medical doctor. He got his degree, but he never practiced medicine. But I looked him up today, and Abdul El Said, he's leading the Minnesota. I think it's the governor's race by a mile. And now they're going at him because, again, he's not fitting the Democrat mold. They're afraid he's going to be used against Democrats across the country to hurt their chances of taking over the House and impeaching Trump. He's recently been on podcasts and TV shows saying, I'm a doctor, I'm a medical doctor, and they cannot find anywhere where he's ever practiced medicine or even got his residency to practice medicine.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to Minnesota. We could talk about them, where federal prosecutors say what started as one of the largest COVID-era fraud scandals in American history has now widened into what officials are calling a broader culture of organized theft targeting taxpayer-funded programs. Today, the U.S. Department of Justice announced criminal charges against 15 individuals. These are federal charges, not state charges like the previous ones, accused of participating in massive fraud operations involving roughly $90 million in taxpayer funds, targeting multiple Minnesota public assistance and Medicaid-related programs. Federal officials described it as one of the largest state-focused healthcare fraud investigations in the country. According to prosecutors, investigators allege the schemes targeted 7 separate state administrated programs, including autism-related services, housing assistance, and disability programs. Authorities say defendants allegedly billed for services never performed, created fraudulent diagnoses, paid kickbacks, and used fake documentation to obtain reimbursement money. One federal official reportedly said fraudsters treated government programs as, quote, their personal piggy bank. It's just unbelievable. And prosecutors say the alleged proceeds did not disappear quietly. Investigators claim money was diverted into it's so dumb, luxury purchases, including vehicles, real estate, jewelry, and other personal spending, while programs designed for vulnerable populations were being drained. Authorities also said one suspect remains at large after reportedly fleeing by jumping from a 4th-floor balcony while law enforcement.
There's video of that guy doing
But
that.
today's developments didn't stop there. In one of the most closely watched fraud cases in America, the alleged mastermind behind the massive Feeding Our Future scandal was also sentenced today. This is shocking. Amy Brock, founder and former executive director of Feeding Our Future, received a 41.5-year prison sentence.
Say it again, 41 years.
41.5-year prison sentence, one of the harshest penalties imposed in a major pandemic-era fraud case. Federal prosecutors had argued that she sat at the epicenter of a scheme that stole more than $240 million from a federal child nutrition program. And remember, Craig, yesterday, the news that we were going through said that it was a $250 million that they had allegedly stolen. She stole $250 million herself.
Right. And it was getting packed up and taken to Somalia in those suitcases through the Minneapolis airport.
Judge Nancy Purcell reportedly criticized Bach during sentencing and cited what prosecutors characterized as repeated dishonesty throughout the proceedings. Bach was also ordered to pay hundreds of millions of dollars, exactly $220 million. The broader Feeding Our Future case itself remains staggering in scale. Federal investigators say the operation allegedly claimed to have served millions of meals that in many cases simply never existed. Prosecutors say the organization exploded from handling a few million dollars annually to nearly $200 million in federal funding within a very short period of time of about 9 months. Nearly 80 people have been charged so far, with more than 60 convictions or plea deals already secured. And tonight, the bigger question becomes this, and I'll throw this one to you, John. How does a system designed to help children, vulnerable families, and people with disabilities become so vulnerable to fraud at this scale?
From the top down. I think it's from the top down. I think Minnesota being the epicenter of a lot of refugees coming from Somalia, I think people tried to be very inclusive, and they tried to bring them into programs that they weren't qualified for. They didn't do background checks to see how, and check things out. And I think when you put people in charge that don't know what they're doing, they didn't get other people in charge that don't know what they're doing. So I think it just cascades down from the top. I mean, and like one lady getting $240 million, $220 million.
They knew what they were doing, John. That's the only way this could occur. They knew what they were doing.
Oh, but I'm saying but they don't know how to do anything legitimate. It was a matter of putting somebody in there that could literally just orchestrate this all the way through. So I think it happened from the top down. I think there's no way. And I think when something would pop up and it's like, hey, we're looking at this and this person may be stealing, I think they looked at it as, well, do we really want to bring that out because that person's from Somalia? And how is that going to make us look that we're actually going after somebody, that's of a different color than us, and that gives them the right. So I think they just let it pass.
Do you think any of this money was kicked up to either of you? Any of this money was kicked up to the Democrat Farmers Party? That's why Keith Ellison, their Attorney General, and their governor did not go after this after hundreds of complaints, whistleblower complaints were filed to the governor's office by Minnesota state employees.
I will say this. Now we are outside the purview of state charges and state administrative activity. Now you're inside federal cases. And I think once the federal government has now said, look, this is Medicaid money that we're sending down to the state and it's, fraudulent in nature, all the things you're doing here, then I think the question becomes, Did Keith Ellison know? And I think the answer to that is yes. Did he choose not to prosecute them? And I think the answer to that is potentially yes. Then I think you now may be facing some type of federal charge for some type of facilitation or something of that nature regarding Keith Ellison's lack of accountability regarding this. And for those of you who don't know, there is audio out there of a meeting where Keith Ellison met with a number of individuals who essentially said, we need your assistance in keeping us out of all of this mix. And
all of Somalian descent.
Yeah. And essentially he said he would have their back. And that's exactly what happened. Nothing happened. And now all this is happening. Keith Ellison, who is the longtime attorney general, former congressman for the state of Minnesota, is now saying, I don't remember any of that. That's not true. I didn't have anything to do with that. It's amazing how memories fade at that point.
But Kyle, if a state employee makes a whistleblower complaint, doesn't it eventually end up in the state attorney general's office?
It could. I mean, it depends on what their process is, and their process in particular may be significantly different.
Okay.
So, I mean, I know in Kentucky that's what would happen. So,
right, yeah, that's what I thought, and I mean, it's unbelievable that this went on and was discovered by, at the time, a 21-year-old podcaster journalist.
Yeah, I mean,
it just went around and went to the Leering Center and all these places and saw all this. He had some help from a guy, from a whistleblower in Minnesota, that put the paperwork in front of him. And when they visited all these places, there's no children there. There's no staff there. The doors are locked. The windows are covered. But he sees that address is getting $2.1 million or $1.8 million. But where's it going? And they found out now.
John, do you think this is isolated, or do you think this is just the beginning now with Vice President Vance involved?
I think it's just the beginning. I think I think your more blue states are going to have more fraud to it because, again, the extra layers of it, of how it's going through it. Now, it's not going to be Somalia, and obviously in every state, but I think every state, I think we all would say that the government wastes money as far as layers of this and that, and having three people do the exact same job as somebody else. So, and no, I think it's the tip of the iceberg. It's just going to be a matter of, at this point, everybody's on guard. Everybody knows they're going to be coming after them now of how it is. And I mean, that whole area up there is, to me, is head scratching. Keith Ellison is one of the, all you have to do is listen to him talk and you realize that he's lying to you.
Yeah.
Honestly, you just have to listen to him and you know he's lying.
You know he's lying. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in all 50 states. I think it's
say so.
A countrywide problem. And we're probably talking maybe across 50 states, it could be $500 billion because it's easy money. I mean, I remember a case when I worked in state government. This guy worked in the revenue cabinet. He was stealing money every month, getting a check mailed to a P.O. box in Indiana. And the only reason he got caught is he got greedy after years of getting this money, and he went above the $50,000 threshold.
Yep.
And that's how he got, the auditors caught it that way. And the guy had stole millions of dollars, bought farms, farm equipment, took vacations like what Kyle was describing, these others. And
they're posting it on social media.
Yeah, this is the same. Yeah, they're pulling up
the work to do
Ferrari and a Corvette. And the thing that I keep going back to, and you're probably tired of hearing it, was people at the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport reported they were carrying suitcases full of money, and they just let them walk through because it's not illegal to carry a bunch of cash around. That's not illegal at all. But if you see the same people going through time and again, at a minimum, you're going to think they're drug dealers.
Well, it actually,
if they're state people,
there are federal regulations on how much cash you can carry overseas. So I mean, I think that's the other thing that you have to wonder is who was not notifying who when these things were happening, and that'll have to be seen in the future. But let's head out west to Seattle. We're just going all over the country.
There's another one.
Yeah. Head out west to Seattle, where a political controversy involving one of the city's most recognizable companies has suddenly taken another turn, and where critics say the larger issue goes far beyond coffee. Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson is now walking back comments she previously made encouraging a boycott of Starbucks. These weren't just statements. She went out and had a boycott rally outside of two of the major.
Told them to quit buying Starbucks coffee.
Yeah, and to walk out, and they did, and so Starbucks closed those locations. And now she is saying that, admitting this week that those remarks, quote, caused more harm than good. The statement marks a significant change in tone after months of criticism and growing concerns over Seattle's relationship with major employers. For context, Wilson had previously joined striking Starbucks workers and publicly said, quote, I'm not buying Starbucks and you should not either. The comments quickly gained national attention because, well, Starbucks isn't just another company in Seattle. It's one of the city's defining corporate institutions and has been for 50 years and among its largest employers. Now, according to reporting this week, Wilson told the New York Times that those comments represented a learning moment, saying, quote, those comments were not productive in the sense that they caused more harm than good, end quote. She also reportedly said that she now understands that her relationship with large employers needs to be more, quote, multidimensional. But critics aren't buying the reversal. The backlash intensified after Starbucks announced plans for a major corporate expansion in Nashville, involving approximately 2,000 jobs, reigniting debate over whether major companies are increasingly looking outside Seattle for future growth. Starbucks has maintained that the move is part of a broader growth strategy and not a Seattle abandonment plan, but they understand their messaging as well. Still, critics seized on the timing. One of the harshest reactions making headlines came from commentators arguing, quote, Seattle can't survive this. Others framed the issue less around Starbucks itself and more around whether Seattle's political climate is creating long-term uncertainty for investment and business growth. Former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz recently warned that the city leadership risks turning business into an adversary rather than a partner. And what's interesting,
where's he live at now, Kyle?
Not in Seattle.
He lives in Florida.
Lives in Florida, yeah. What's interesting here is that the criticism isn't only coming from conservatives. Seattle City Council member Rob Saka, a Democrat who had previously welcomed political change in the city, reportedly said he is becoming, quote, gravely concerned over questions involving business, flight, and economic confidence. Now, here there is an important distinction for viewers. No evidence currently shows Starbucks is leaving Seattle altogether. The company still remains, has its headquarters there, and says its Tennessee expansion is part of a broader strategy. But perception matters in politics and business. And tonight, the larger question may be this, and I'll throw it to you, John. How do cities balance labor activism and progressive policies as a true progressive policy man yourself, while also maintaining relationships with the employers that provide thousands of jobs and a major chunk of the tax base?
It takes reality. I think, everything takes money, to be honest, no matter really what it is, it takes money. And when you're looking at things that you want to accomplish in your city, in your county, where you live, it takes money to do that. And when you literally turn against the people that create that money for you and don't make it a conducive environment for them to be able to thrive and to be able to grow, it's you shouldn't be surprised when they leave. And that's been the thing that has surprised me so much from pretty much all of the West Coast is none of them are really surprised that people are leaving. Like even, the mayor here, then she said they had an interview and they're like, what do you think of people leaving? She said, bye.
Yeah.
So
like,
wow. Like,
what are you talking about?
But looking at it, it's a matter of, there are so many social services that are out there. You have to have fire, you have to have EMS, you have to have law enforcement. Well, those all cost money. And when you look at a declining population of people leaving and asking everybody out there to pay, $35 or $40 for a minimum wage, it really starts to go against each other. And you have to have a city council that is wanting to grow and have better things for your city rather than just better things for just a select few. And that's what I think they've done out there.
Yeah, we did have a comment here on that previous story. I went out of the country. This is from Alvy Abroad. Hey, Alvy. I went out of the country. You have to declare anything over $10,000. If I would have had a suitcase full of money, they would have confiscated it.
They would have just filled out paperwork and then allowed them to go on. That's all you got to do. Just like
But the difference is they would have filled out paperwork. And I think
Yeah.
at that point you're looking at where's that money coming from.
they did fill it out, but it's it's like if you do a $10,000 deposit, a 10,001 or $10,000 deposit to a bank or withdrawal, the feds are notified about it, but they get notified millions of times a day from people moving money around. So it just gets lost in the thing.
I think there's a little bit of a difference here, Craig, is that people are claiming that the money that they were not filling out the paperwork, and had they filled out paperwork, they would have been able to trace this back to individuals.
Yeah, I'll check that. And
Yeah.
But on the Starbucks thing, our friend Garnet in Nashville, every time there all this stuff popping up in Tennessee, he sends me the news stories about it.
Well, I
They're
know.
building a $125 million building, office park in Nashville. I don't know, they say they're going to stay in Seattle, but man, that's an expensive building.
Yeah, it
And
is.
when Howard Schultz takes his $3.5 billion and moves to Florida, and then Starbucks built a building in Tennessee, both of them no state tax states, and they're getting drum rolled by the Seattle mayor. I mean, and just saying, "I dare you to leave." Well, you don't dare billionaires to leave.
Well,
move.
And I think that's the other thing. I'll liken this to the Ken Griffin Citadel deal, where Mamdani was outside of his townhouse, his multi-million-dollar townhouse that he has, and talking about he's going to tax the rich and he's going to do all these things. And then all of a sudden, Ken Griffin and his employees are like, you know what? We don't really need to be in all this. Like we'll move. We can move if we really want to. And then all of a sudden, Mamdani's like, well, I didn't really mean to, to point you out. It's like, brother, what did you think was good? You're standing outside of, you even used my name, and that you didn't have to do that.
And pointed at his house.
Yeah, pointed at his house there. It's ridiculous to think that there won't be blowback there. And then, to be $8 billion in the hole, and then the very next week say, well, we balanced that budget. You balanced it because New York bailed you out. Washington doesn't have the ability to bail Seattle out. There's not enough funds from other places in Washington to be able to do that. So I think that's fool's gold to act like Mamdani here, because you're going to run yourself into the ground a lot faster than he can, because Kathy Hochul has a much larger state budget than you do.
Well, it's how does socialism end? When you run out of everybody else's money. And I mean, and when these are very stereotypical, exactly what's happening there. They're running out of other people's money. It's the same thing of saying that, you shouldn't have, probably shouldn't have guns, shouldn't have weapons, but yet they have security that has that. Same thing if they have fences around their homes. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. And running out of somebody else's money is it.
Yeah, let me read the Minneapolis airport thing. Recent scale TSA data via FOIA, Freedom of Information, shows nearly $700 million in declared U.S. cash flagged in passengers' luggage leaving Minneapolis St. Paul Airport in 24, 20, and 25 alone, or about 1 million per day. This volume is dramatically higher than other major airports like JFK, Chicago O'Hare, and LAX. How it worked: couriers frequently described the Somali men traveling in pairs, carried suitcases packed with neatly bundled cash, sometimes up to $1 million or more. They went through security, declared their over 10,000 amount as required by U.S. law for international departures, and flew, often via Amsterdam or Dubai, to East Africa and Somalia. So they're doing it, or they were doing it. I'm sure it's stopped now because they're not stealing all the money from the Minneapolis or the Minnesota taxpayers.
I think the amount of fraud that you have in some of these blue states, and then you have these major blue cities who are also, embracing socialism. Eventually, as John said, you start running out of money, and you definitely start running out of other people's money at some point.
Right. Yeah. And that's what those folks, that 15 that were arrested today.
Yeah.
One of the programs that was supposed to have year-long money was completely depleted before the end of this month.
Yeah.
And that might have been what triggered them to start looking at those.
Yeah.
That run out of money so quick.
one more story before we get into sports, but let's turn overseas to a rapidly developing global health story where concern is growing over the expanding Ebola outbreak and a dramatic account from an American doctor who says that before being evacuated from Congo, he feared he was not going to survive. Health officials are increasingly sounding the alarm tonight as the Ebola outbreak, centered in the Democratic Republic of Congo, continues expanding into additional regions and neighboring countries. The World Health Organization has elevated concerns over the outbreak scale and spread as cases and deaths continue to rise. I think even Elon Musk tweeted about this in the last couple of days. Officials say the current outbreak involves, I'm not even going to try it, the Bundibugyo strain of Ebola, which is drawing particular concern because there is, get this, no currently approved vaccine specifically for the variant. Unlike some previous Ebola outbreaks, health authorities say that that complicates containment efforts significantly. Tonight, one of the most personal and dramatic stories emerging from the crisis involves American physician Dr. Peter Stafford, a medical missionary working with Christian organization Surge in Congo. Stafford contracted Ebola while treating patients in the outbreak and was evacuated to a specified hospital in Berlin, Germany, where he is now being treated. In his statement, he said, "Before I was evacuated, I was feeling really concerned I wasn't going to make it. And at this point, Stafford, with his wife and children, who are considered close contacts, were also transported to Germany and placed under monitoring and isolation protocols as a precautionary measure. Meanwhile, officials say the outbreak itself may be broader than initially believed. That's always comforting. CDC continues to stress that the immediate risk to the U.S. public remains low. I've heard that before. But the agency has implemented enhanced screening and travel protocols. Heard that before, involving affected areas, including Congo, Uganda, and South Sudan. Here's the larger concern tonight. Ebola has historically been one of the world's deadliest infectious diseases, with some strains showing fatality rates exceeding 50%, and sometimes much higher depending on access to treatment and conditions on the ground. Containment relies heavily on rapid identification, isolation, contact tracing, and public cooperation. Tonight, many health experts are asking whether the world is watching another localized outbreak or the beginning of something much larger, because for Dr. Stafford, this story is no longer about numbers on a chart. It is about survival. Craig, your thoughts on whether it's the hantavirus or now we hear about Ebola virus? How much of this is just the mainstream media keeping us stirred up?
Well, now the mainstream media is blaming America again.
Typical.
Because of this Ebola outbreak and the hantavirus outbreak. And there's a new one that's just come out in another African country that I'd never heard about, and it's just getting a little bit of press attention. But they're saying because we defunded USAID.
Oh, come on.
That's what's caused this. But so my question is, there's 195 countries on planet Earth. There's 193 of them that are in the UN. Why is it always America's fault every time something happens in the world? You got another 192 countries that could be doing medical watch on all these different countries in China and I mean, not countries in China, but countries in Africa and China to look for these health alerts. But, you know, it's amazing how many, you know, started in Argentina, went to the cruise ship, and then it spread out across the world. Now the Ebola has, what'd you say, it was in 3 countries, and I think that today they listed a couple more. Yeah. So it's spreading. It's an especially virulent Ebola virus. Like you said, it doesn't have a cure. A cure is months and months away, using the SMRA or whatever it was they used for the coronavirus. So it's amazing how it's always our damn fault as a country or a party for this stuff breaking out across the world. And the other 194 countries, they have no reason to even think about looking at stuff like this, because the people that are going to die are going to be in their countries, but long before they're ones in ours.
I will tell you that the one thing that I still don't understand is why that boat is not still sitting out in the ocean somewhere with an entire.
Right.
I wouldn't have let that dock anywhere. Listen,
right.
I think we mentioned it here. Like, we'll drop off all the alcohol and food and everything you all want for the next 3 months, but you know, give them a stipend from all the countries, you know, to live on or whatever. But you ain't docking. I'm sorry. I mean,
stay party drunk for.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you got to do. John, are you prepared to get your Hanta/Ebola antivirus vaccine at this point?
You know, I would say I would probably be a pass. Would be my guess.
Speaking from
You know,
experience.
I mean, I am a person, you know, that looks at data and looks at numbers, which would probably definitely show me a pass on taking it.
If your
But
data's good, I mean, they gave us data for 2 years that was
Right. Well,
functionally.
and then we had to figure out where the data was coming from. It's kind you know, it's kind of you can always make data work out if you choose to.
it
You
just
know,
depends on who writes the algorithm, right?
That's right.
that's right.
You come up with
Right.
any outcome you want, and
I
you
can
know,
make a spreadsheet say anything.
right. And
Absolutely.
we'll talk about global warming in the future on another future show. But right now, Al Gore's screaming global cooling.
Oh,
yeah.
and I saw a thing the other night. It was actually last night. The UN has completely backed out of its previous global warming statements,
They had
mainly because the dates were coming up that the world was going to end.
Right.
We weren't near
No.
the world
And
ending.
I'm a weather nerd. If you didn't know this, John, I've been on this IPCC crap since it started in the early 2000s.
Glad
And
you could join me in on this, John.
yeah, they backed off of their 8.5 point by the year 2021, 8.5 centigrade rise. It was going to cause the end of the planet. But as many business people say, banks are not going to keep loaning millions of dollars to build these castles on every coast, on every country in the planet, if they're going to be lost to water in 30 years. And then we had Al Gore predicted the end of the Arctic for 18 different times. AOC famously said in 2019 that we're going to reach the point of no return by 2031. Yeah. And others have said all these predictions, and now they're switching. IPCC backed off, like Kyle said, and now they're switching. Al Gore famously came out last week and said, we're afraid now, or he's afraid now, that the planet's going to freeze. Yeah. It's hilarious. It is totally hilarious.
Yeah, forget everything I've said over the last.
That's why I wear a tinfoil hat every now and then.
Right. Well, we have talked about all the news that I think we're going to talk about tonight. Let's get into some UK sports. You guys good with that?
Heck yeah.
All right.
Break.
Okay, let's go.
We have some breaking news. I know, Craig, you said we have some breaking news as well.
NASCAR Kyle Busch, 41 years old. They just announced that he's passed away.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up the story right now, but that's the same one that I got. 41 years old Kyle Busch has passed away, and we will try to get the information out to you guys. As
he won 234 races across 3 different, the Cup. I mean, the truck and the cars. 63 Cup races, including the Coca-Cola 600. So this is big.
It says NASCAR said Kyle Busch was hospitalized as a result of a severe illness.
That doesn't say what it does.
On behalf of the Busch family, everyone at Richard Childress Racing, and all of NASCAR, we are devastated to announce the death and tragic passing of Kyle Busch. NASCAR said in a statement, "Our entire NASCAR family is heartbroken for the loss of Kyle Busch. Future Hall of Famer, Kyle was a rare talent who comes along once in a generation. He was fierce, he was passionate, he was immensely skilled, and he cared deeply about the sport and fans." So for those of you who are just joining us tonight, we just have late breaking news that Kyle Busch, 41 years old, NASCAR champion, multi-time NASCAR champion, has passed away at the age of 41 years old.
That sucks.
It does. Yeah. It's a tough way to start. Let's get into some Big Blue Nation news that has come across the wire today. The University of Kentucky made what could be one of the most significant structural changes in the future of UK athletics, and frankly, this may be much bigger than simply replacing Mitch Barnhart. Today, the University of Kentucky officially announced that Mitch Barnhart's replacement will not simply carry the title of athletic director. Instead, the new leader will hold 2 titles simultaneously: athletic director and chief executive officer of Champions Blue LLC. And if you're sitting at home thinking, wait a minute, what exactly is Champions Blue? For those of you who don't know, you're probably not alone. Champions Blue is essentially UK's new business and operational structure created to give Kentucky greater flexibility in the rapidly changing world of college athletics. UK has described it as a model intended to create additional revenue streams, manage costs more efficiently, and position Kentucky for the future of NIL athlete compensation, media rights, partnerships, and potential new business opportunities. Let's break down these what these two jobs actually mean. Obviously, what we are hearing now, as opposed to what we heard 2 weeks ago, Craig, is that this is not going to be two separate positions. That it is going to be essentially one person. President Eli Capilouto had said many times that he was considering, after his listening tour, as he called it,
Yeah.
to determine if they were going to have two individuals. But it doesn't appear that's what's going to happen now. The athletic director responsibilities will have oversight of all UK athletic programs, coaching, hires, and evaluations, maintaining NCAA and SEC compliance, fundraising and donor relationships, student athlete success and academics, competitive success across all sports. But the new part is the CEO role. CEO of Champions Blue responsibility will be developing new revenue streams, managing major financial operations, overseeing athlete compensation structures, coordinating NIL and revenue sharing system, working with corporate partners and media rights groups. Boy, this is a lot. And potentially developing public-private partnerships and business investments. In other words, UK is basically saying this: the next athletic director cannot simply be a sports administrator anymore. They have to function like a sports commissioner and a Fortune 500 executive all rolled into one. President Eli Capilouto said today the leadership role must change and adapt. And that quote may tell you everything you need to know, because in the NIL era and with direct athlete revenue sharing now becoming reality, college athletics is becoming closer to professional sports every single year. It is professional sports, for lack of a better term. And now let's get into the names that are discussed. We'll mention those names shortly. John, as a graduate of the University of Kentucky, your thought, and a big follower of UK sports, just like Craig and I are, your thoughts on this news coming out about this new position?
If we are the cutting edge of sports, it is professional sports. I mean, college athletics, calling them amateurs, calling them kids, that's all kind of a stretch anymore. I mean, if you're getting paid millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or dollars to be paid, you're a professional athlete. And I mean, I agree with the University of Kentucky going this route. Like I said, I think last time I was on, I said, hiring Billy Donovan more as a general manager would be a great idea there. Looking at it being a Fortune 500 company, that's exactly what that chief executive officer of Champions Blue is going to be. It's going to be, like you said, different revenue streams. It just, as a alumni and as a lifelong UK fan, it's difficult to see it go this route. But, if it's going to go this route, which it seems it's going to, I think we need to be at the very, the forefront of it. We don't need to watch everybody else do it and us try to play catch up. I think it's something that we need to dive into and get the most qualified people out there to do it. But as a lifelong UK fan, it's hard to see it.
Craig, does this make sense now that we've heard in the last couple of days that Mark Pope says I'm not going to hire a GM? Is that because the football team and the basketball team may have had these conversations knowing that this new role was going to be coming into play? So you can say I'm not hiring a GM because we have people who are going to be doing this in those roles for the university.
And it could be that the new person that takes this job, they're no longer going to be immersed in athletics only. They're going to have to be a CEO of a company with a business degree from Harvard and maybe a law degree to understand all the ins and outs of this, not to break the NCAA rules. This is going to be a tough job at one of the biggest schools and the biggest basketball program in the country. And it's going to be so hard to do. I'm glad they're only putting it under one, because remember, they were talking about doing it with 4 different people
right
at one time. And when they got it down to 2, I said, well, that's good. And now that they've got it down to 1, it's going to be a full-time job. And this guy's going to make some serious bucks to make sure UK doesn't violate the rules and get enough money to pay these athletes to come to UK.
Well,
what rules are there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think
that's to be defined.
Yeah,
to be defined.
I will tell you, the names that have been thrown out there right now, the most frequently mentioned name, and John, we may have talked about this last time you were here, Jeremiah Dickey from Boise State. He has surfaced publicly so far as the main name that we've heard about. Previously, KSR's Justin Rowland reported Dickey as a name to watch. He's viewed as energetic. He's a big fundraiser. and modern administrator with aggressive branding ideas. I don't think he fits the
Not
required
now.
need at this point. I mean,
No.
I think you're going to have to bring somebody in, and I'm just going to throw a name out here. He's not linked to anything, but you're going to have to bring in a guy like a Theo Epstein, a guy
Yeah.
that ran, the Boston Red Sox and then ran the Cubs, won World Series championships for both of them. But he was the general manager at a very young age. It's hard to believe. I think he's like 51 or 52. He's still very young. But you're going to have to bring in somebody that has pro sports and business experience
Yeah.
that went to
And-
Harvard or Yale or the University of Michigan or one of these, big universities that has a great business program. And Kentucky has a good business program. Don't get me wrong, but you're going to have to bring in somebody with some real cred. When
Right.
you-
It's going to have to be a Wall Street executive. It's going to have to be somebody with a Harvard degree, because if we don't get out ahead of it, it'll leave us in the dust like it's been doing the last couple of years. And it just cannot be somebody from a Boise State or a West Texas University. It's got to be a CEO of a top 200 company in the United States to run this as a business, no longer as an athletic pro. It's got to be run as a business.
Well, and that's the thing, is that there are large corporations that are pro sports entities. I mean, you can find a general manager that has run a sports entity that knows how to handle these things from both ends. And that's why I think you have to look at one of these general managers for baseball who handles huge contracts. You're going to have to find somebody that perhaps was, in the NFL, higher offices, things of that nature. But, one of the interesting things is some social media discussion is focused on whether UK could elevate someone already deeply familiar with the structure Barnhart built. I don't think you can do that either at this point.
No.
There is nobody there that you could elevate to that role. And at Dwayne Peavy or anyone else,
Right.
you can't hire within if this is the new standard that you're going to require. And you wouldn't have hired Mitch Barnhart if this was the standard, 25 years ago. So you're going to have to look at external candidates that you would have never thought about, and you're going to have to pay them, because these general managers at these athletic, these major pro sports teams, they make good money and they have good perks, and they live in places like Miami and New York and places like that. So you have to make it worth their while to come down here. But what a big splash it would be if you went after, one of these young guys who has, or ladies who has been very successful in their field already, and they're looking for, a new area where they could thrive. John, your thoughts on how this affects basketball in the upcoming year? And I'll be honest, Craig and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. We're a month away from Mitch Barnhart being done. A month.
Right.
And we don't have a top 3 candidates at this point. We're essentially just putting out the LinkedIn description today, and we have to have somebody in a month. What are we going to do?
Again, it's kind of been indicative of the University of Kentucky program the last couple of years to kind of not lead, kind of all of a sudden take a second step back, and talking about looking for somebody like this. So this is a new type of person that the whole country is going to be looking for. So you're going to have the same thing at North Carolina, at Kansas, at Tennessee, at Florida. They're all going to end up having this type of a person there. And if this is a new type of person coming through that will be looked at differently, if it's coming from the pro leagues, I think that's a given. I think it has to come from the pro leagues if you're going to deal with pro players. Now, I think the players are going to have to realize that they're not just kids anymore. You show up to campus, you're expected to produce. And that's not fair to a lot of 18 and 19-year-old kids. But I think if the overall goal is for them to come in, if they're a freshman phenom, to come in, play, go to the NBA, or if they're designed to be here 4 years and transfer that 5th year, we've got to have somebody out there that can say, look, I know you're a 5th year senior and you're coming from, Ball State, but you're going to come here. You've done wonderful. Here's the trajectory of this. And I think if we can be a example, and which as a University of Kentucky, we should be, especially in basketball, I think we can be the example that other people are trying to set. And if we can take off and do it, there's just been this over all of college athletics, there's been a big pushback on hiring people from the professional ranks. And I think that's because we've always seen it never work. But this is not the same time as it was bringing those. It's just not. Those coaches now coming down they are coaching a professional team.
Right.
I mean, I think U of L's I mean, they all made fun of us last year at 22 million. I've heard it's 31.5 million.
Yeah,
I
we've been talking about that, John.
I said to Craig that
They're blowing it away.
It's like
I mean, if they didn't learn from Big Brother, please, little brother, listen to us, and again, they may win it, but it's hard to put that team together and just keep adding players on there. So
I said it's like Scrooge McDuck had backed up the Brinks truck up at Louisville. I don't know if I didn't know Scrooge McDuck was a
the more you pay this year, you're going to have to pay more next year. If the top 5 guy gets $5 million this year, next year they're going to expect 6.
Let me throw three. Let me throw 3 names at you. They're all basketball, and I think football and baseball GMs have to be considered as well. But I'm going to throw 3 names at you right now. The first one is Brad Stevens with the Boston Celtics. Great basketball mind. Was the coach up there for a long time. Now the general manager. Brad Stevens is somebody I think we had talked about him coming to Kentucky at one time as a basketball coach. Then the next name that I'll throw out there is Pat Riley. I mean, Pat Riley coming home.
He's too old.
Well, he's
how
old.
old is Pat Riley?
106. I don't know. I mean,
I'll look it up.
He's old, but I'm telling you, Pat Riley still makes aggressive moves, and he's got a team around him, and he's still got good hair, and he got a nice tan, and he's Kentucky royalty. Let's be honest. I mean, what better way to come back and maybe build the program for 2 or 3 years?
He's 81.
81. That's 81. You could be president at 81 these days.
Absolutely.
There's
dudes entering the Senate. There's guys running the Senate at 81. That's a baby.
It's a lot colder up here than it is in Maine.
81. Well, he can spend some time down there. 81's the new 75. It's not even a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's a young 81, just like the other guy you mentioned.
Yeah. Now let me throw this one at you, Craig, and I think this one will get you excited. What if you go with a guy like, say, Sam Presti, the GM for the Oklahoma City Thunder? Yeah. He's 48 years old. He has essentially constructed one of the craziest rosters ever, and it will remain a great roster for the next 10 years thanks to everything he's doing. They say he's a business savant, that he understands, dollars and cents, and he's running a professional ball club, one of the best one there is in Oklahoma City, and he has all sorts of promotional deals and everything, and they're one of the most popular ones in Oklahoma City. Lexington, Kentucky would be easy after you've done that in Oklahoma City. You bring in a guy like Sam Presti, who has managed big names, big contracts, big ideas. Not a terrible idea. John, your thoughts?
It's a great idea. The only problem is I bet if you asked him and said, okay, now we need you to do football too.
Yeah, right.
And we also got to have you do volleyball, and we got to have you do baseball. I worry as far as that last, on the screen, the last thing there of UK athletics director.
Yeah.
That's going to be very difficult to tell him, hey, you've done basketball, but hey, you can also do this too. So, I think that's going to be a difficult, bridge, especially when you're looking at overall sports. I know you got assistant ADs and you got people like that can do it, but I think you're going to have a visionary. You're going to have an idea man that has ideas, and some of them may not work.
You know what his contract salary is? $4 million. I think we could pay him 10.
Sure.
And say, hey, can you do football and the minor sports too?
Well,
he would just hire staff to do football.
Yeah,
but is that fair to us? For us to have hiring somebody to do football? Should we not have somebody that comes? Because if you hired somebody that's from the football ranks, let's just say Nick Saban. Let's say you hired Nick Saban to come in and handle football. Imagine telling him that, okay, what about baseball and basketball too? I think it would be like one of those commercials. He would just walk out with the duck. He would just literally walk out and be like, no, Aflac, I'm not doing it. So I think that would be the issue.
I'm looking up Mitch Barnhart's salary now. I bet it's in the $8 million range.
We do have people that are saying everybody that we named is not an option. But
Barnhart's only $1.425 million.
But I think that's changing. That's part of a contract deal. I think that it's interesting because people say none of these names are realistic. No, nobody's done this. No school has ever done this before.
No school in the whole NCAA is doing what Kentucky is getting ready to do.
Right.
We're the guinea pig on this. And to get somebody of quality that we want, or the fan base will go nuts,
Yeah.
We're going to have to pay up to get them.
But we need to be first. We don't want to have the picked-overs. We want to be
Yeah.
first if we're going to find that, because there's not very many people that can pull this off right now. That over the years, there's going to be people that will
Right.
come out that will be good at this in 5 or 6 years. But do we want to wait 5 or 6 years to get the 1 or 2 people in the country that can do this now?
We can't
My thoughts.
afford to wait.
Well,
That's
as the great Reese Bobby said in Talladega Nights, if you ain't first, you're last.
Your last.
Right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
might as well get on board with it. Let's stay at the University of Kentucky. While much of the attention in Lexington is centered around basketball and the athletic director search, Kentucky football has been quietly putting together one of the more surprising recruiting runs in the country. And it seems like every time I open up X, I have, or my text messages with my guys, there's a ton more that are popping up. Kentucky is suddenly becoming one of the hottest stories in college football recruiting, while the national spotlight has been elsewhere. Will Stein and his staff are quietly building a top 10 class, according to some recruiting services, and are tracking toward a top 15 to top 20 national finish across the major composite rankings. Kentucky's recruiting momentum has accelerated dramatically over the last month, and industry observers are openly describing the Wildcats as being on a recruiting heater. And today, the Wildcats added another piece. Kentucky landed a commitment from Kelsey Gerald, a talented running back out of Boynton Beach, Florida. Gerald chose Kentucky over offers and interest from other programs, including Florida State, Indiana, and others. Recruiting services have highlighted his explosiveness and track speed background. He's a state finalist. I think he runs this weekend in the state finals down in Florida. A Florida State track.
Yeah.
That's not
He's
running.
a speed demon.
Right.
He's a speed demon.
Yeah. The significance here is bigger than just adding a running back. Kentucky is now continuing a pattern we've seen under Will Stein, where that recruiting Florida and the West Coast aggressively is the pattern. For years, Kentucky built its roster primarily through Kentucky, Ohio, and Tennessee, especially through Mark Stoops and his Ohio contacts. Stein appears to be casting a much wider net into talent-rich areas across the South. Another recent major addition was Miles Brown, a 4-star defensive back from Tennessee. Brown chose Kentucky over programs including Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Louisville. And many recruiting analysts viewed that as a very important head-to-head recruiting victory for the Wildcats involving Louisville and Tennessee. KSR's Adam Luckett noted Kentucky has added wave after wave of commitments recently, and recruiting analysts have repeatedly pointed out something that jumps off the page. Kentucky isn't just collecting bodies anymore, as we've done in the past. They're landing more top 100 and top 500 caliber players than many expected. But let's bring it into the big picture. Because the story isn't just about the 2027 class, it's the overall direction of the program under Will Stein. For the 2026 roster, Kentucky attacked the transfer portal aggressively with a focus on speed and offensive playmakers. And this is the current rankings on the transfer portal coming in to the 2026 football season. And Kentucky is now sitting in the top 10
Hard to believe.
transfer portals. And, listen, we've had good recruiting classes. We've had decent recruiting classes in the past, and they have started out with we're ranked 8th or 9th, and then all of a sudden we're 15th. The next thing you know, we're 31. Kentucky has continuously been in this 7 to 11 range in all the major rankings that they've done. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of 5 stars that are there, but there's a lot of 4 stars, a ton of 3 stars that are coming in, and now they're talking about Kentucky having one of the best offensive lines in the entire SEC coming into this year. I mean, John Schlarman is happy. He's looking down on us and he's smiling. Losing John Schlarman, a phenomenal human being, but losing him destroyed any chance of Kentucky being competitive, because he was the big blue wall, the guy who led that big blue wall and coached them up to where they are. Now they're saying that we have 5 of the best offensive line starters in the country. Your guys' thoughts on where Kentucky is right now in the football realms, and can we keep this going?
Go ahead, John.
I mean, you got Will Stein. He's one of the top 3 play callers in the country. That's been said by most analysts, by most teams. So, it's not surprising at all. I think most of us that are UK football fans had seen that Stoops was a defensive coordinator. We have always struggled to see an offense. because we change offensive coordinators, it seems, every year, because if there's something going in the offense, Stoops didn't have the ability to be like, look, we need to do this, or we need to do that. He just didn't have that ability. I don't know if he had it on offense or defense for that matter, but on offense he didn't. And I think with Stein, you've got a top play caller. And I think when these kids are coming out of high school, they're all about Twitter. They're all about seeing who's calling this, who's doing that, what camps has Will Stein been at, what all-star things has he been at, and all that stuff matters. And Kentucky, we're on an upswing. I mean, we've got a new coach. We're going to have new money put towards it. We're going to, you've got, tickets this year went up amazingly for season tickets, but
facilities, yeah,
you got new facilities, you got everything in there, so you've got the ability right now to get people in here. And I mean, we start off with Alabama in the SEC, I believe. And that's, we'll see. But that would be, I mean, a lot of people have predicted that's going to be his first SEC win is going to be over Alabama. I mean, I hope that's not the measuring stick from which we use as his success or not, because being a lifelong UK fan, I just hope they keep it, just don't get blown out.
Yeah, exactly.
But seeing that the expectation of having the top 10 of the classes, having more people out there, the expectation grows. And I think the issue we always had before was, why would you come to Kentucky if you can go to Alabama or Auburn or all those? Well, now when you add money to it, it helps. And I think when you add in talent, it helps as well.
Let me pose this question, y'all. We're actually excited for this recruiting class.
Yeah.
It's the best one we've had, on paper in many, many years. So pose this question. We're landing them on football. We are not landing them on basketball. Is it just because of the coach?
Well, I think, look, one of the things that being a fan of Kentucky has allowed me to do is it has allowed me to see a lot of different coaches and coaching staffs come through, not only in football, but basketball as well. And, Will Stein's the fresh new thing, he's hot. Everybody likes it. Everybody wants to, see how things go. It wasn't 15 years or 12 years ago. Mark Stoops was the hot new thing. We were going to have defenses.
I'm not bashing Stoops.
No, I agree. I'm saying that he's the hot new thing. I think, we're going to talk about, the basketball team here in a second. I don't think the basketball team is in terrible shape, but I agree with you. We're not landing the top recruiting class. And so I think that's the reality. The difference here is with UK football, it used to simply be play good defense, run the football, run that clock as fast as you can, and win ugly. Right? I mean, if we won by 10 points, it was a shocker ever. I mean, even, games that were, against MAC teams. Stein's reputation is something you like, Craig, in the sense that it is score as many points as you can, as much as you can, attack vertically as much as you can. And
junior Hal Mummy.
Yeah, and make defenses. I think he's going to be better than Hal Mummy because he's more controlled and he has defensive coaching there, and make defenses uncomfortable all the time. Now the expectations are the different part. And I think with the basketball team, we had lofty expectations that we were immediately going to be, back into the Final Four. We got into the Sweet 16 the first year. Second year wasn't great. We had a lot of injuries those 2 years. Here, I think we're at that honeymoon expectation side. And we've been here before with other coaches.
Yeah, this is make and break year for Pope.
And this is make or break year for Pope. But Will Stein, we have a very short memory here with this fan base. And so, I mean, Will Stein's going to come in with a lot of stuff. And I think it's very probable. In fact, the betting markets all say that UK is likely to go 6-6. If Will Stein goes 6-6 as a fan with 9 SEC games, good on you, buddy. I'll be super happy. I don't know if this fan base who won 10 games a couple times is going to be just okay with winning 6 games every year.
They'll get first-year coach grace.
They will.
From the fan base.
Yeah.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, I think you're going to have the honeymoon phase. And the football team is on an upswing. You got the top play caller in the country. We didn't get the top basketball coach in the country. Let's just be honest. We didn't. So, we stole Stein, I think Oregon, right? I mean, we stole him from them as their top play caller. So think about all the quarterbacks that he's been recruiting and all the offensive players that he's been talking from Oregon that now all of a sudden he's here. So that helped us out recruiting wise as well.
Yeah, he was the OC at court. He was offensive coordinator at Oregon.
So, I mean, as far as recruiting, he had all those players. He had all that stuff out there. So I do think this is the year. But I'm with Kyle. If he goes 6-6 with 9 SEC games, welcome to the SEC.
Yeah.
I mean,
good on you. I mean, listen, Indiana did it, and they play in the Big Ten. And the Big Ten, I'm just going to say it, the Big Ten has been more competitive and better than the SEC has been over the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm telling you right now that if it can happen at Indiana, one of the worst football programs in the country, it can absolutely happen at Kentucky. So, I mean, I just think that is something to look forward to, and the unpredictability nature. I mean, listen, Oregon was a tough out for teams last year, and so I think that's something to look forward to as well.
It's just going to be exciting, and we're going to have fast pace because our basketball players they're big, wide, and fast, and then Stein is recruiting just speed demons across the board.
Yeah.
And we've talked, Kyle, about the offensive line we've had decent quarterbacks, but they've never had any protection. These quarterbacks are going to have protection this year.
Kenny Minchie is also going to be a really, really good quarterback. I don't think people have any idea how good this kid from Notre Dame is going to be, and I'm actually really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be phenomenal. And we have 2 or 3 backups for the first time. This guy doesn't work. Okay, we got other guys that can play this. And I think they may play 2 quarterbacks a lot just because they'll be running so much going on. So
and it's going to be a fun football year between UK and Franklin County.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be Homer City.
It will be. One last story tonight, let's say with the Big Blue Nation, because one of the biggest names in all of college basketball may now come with one of the biggest price tags we've ever seen. And the rumor mill is absolutely exploding tonight. Iowa State star Milan Momcilovic has suddenly become one of the hottest names in college basketball, and now the numbers being discussed around him are eye-popping. According to CBS Sports' Isaac Trotter, reporting that has since been picked up by multiple outlets, Momcilovic could command up to, get this, $6 million in NIL money if he returns to college rather than staying in the NBA draft process. Some reports suggest that under potential eligibility scenarios, his total college earnings could theoretically approach $10 to $12 million. Because remember, he's got 2 years. And if you're sitting there thinking $6 million for one college player, you are not alone. Because remember who we're talking about here. Momcilovic averaged almost 17 points per game, shot a blistering 48.7% from 3.
That's astounding.
Yeah. Earned second team all Big 12 honors as an assassin and became one of the most efficient shooters in the country. Kentucky fans also remember him very well when he put up 20 points and hit 4 threes against the Wildcats in the NCAA tournament. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for Kentucky fans. The chatter surrounding Mark Pope in Kentucky has intensified substantially over the last week. Momcilovic himself recently discussed Kentucky publicly and had this to say, saying, I think Kentucky would be a good fit. We're the only school that he's come out and actually mentioned, by the way. He specifically pointed towards Pope's offensive style, pushing tempo and creating three-point opportunities, and suggested the Kentucky system could maximize his game. Let's get into the social media and message boards world, what things are saying. Big Blue Nation circles and KSR boards, Reddit discussions, and fan groups are increasingly pushing the idea that Kentucky feels like the natural basketball fit. And a lot of fans are saying, and I think you guys will agree here, pay him whatever it takes. The competing schools right now are, believe it or not, Kansas, St. John's, Florida. I don't think Florida is realistic at this point, and Louisville, with some analysts viewing Kentucky and St. John's now as a especially interesting situation if he returns to college. There is another wrinkle. Some around the NBA draft combine continue to believe he may never reach the point of choosing another college at all. Multiple reports continue to emphasize that Momcilovic's stated priority remains the NBA, and some analysts believe he could stay in the draft process if his feedback remains strong. The uncomfortable reality for college basketball is now we're talking about $6 million per player, and there are very few programs right now who still have $6 million in the bank.
That's why it's got to be. It's got to be Kentucky. It's got to be, and
the Scrooge Ducks up the street,
right? Yeah.
But
to continue on with what Momcilovic, is that right? Momcilovic what he said in that statement was at Iowa State, he played BYU twice when Pope was there, and they went 1-1. And he said he really liked Coach Pope's style of run it up the floor and shoot a ton of threes.
Yeah.
Well,
Which is
that was what we did.
Yeah, at 48%, the guy loves to shoot. And Pope's style, now that he's getting players that can actually do this, we had one last year. Now we might have about 6 because Cam Williams is back. If we get Momcilovic and the other guards, I mean, it's just going to be it's going to be an amazing year.
I am increasingly believing that Malachi Moreno will be back. I don't think any of the three of us disagree with that. I think he will be back. But Momcilovic is a little different in the sense that he's not one of these guys that's saying it's all about money. It's all about that I have to, wait for the biggest number that comes through. And this guy may never be a lottery pick just because of the type of player that he is. I look at him a lot like a Peja Stojakovic back in the day. He spreads the floor. He's a big guy who can shoot. But he may stay in the draft just because there's, it's the pros are what he's always wanted to do.
He says that again and again.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, you're a pro if you come to Kentucky, right? You're going to be paid more than you're going to be paid in the NBA to start off with.
Yeah, and he won't be a top 10 because apparently he's not a real good defender. But if you shoot 48% from three, who cares? Steph Curry's not a good defender. He's a terrible defender if he even tries it at all. Same thing with James Harden. Those guys are shooters. Yeah. And he goes in at, how tall is he, Kyle? 6'7"?
6'8".
6'8". Okay. You go in that good and you can drop 48% from the three, and wide open as the NBA offenses are, you come back one more year, you get picked in the top 15, you get, instead of $6 million a year, you get guaranteed $8, $9, or $10 million a year for a 4-year contract. Get through that, and then the big money hits on your second contract, your post-rookie contract, when now you're paid $20 or $25 million a year. So he can come back for 6 to Kentucky or St. John's or wherever. Get into that top 15 status. Look, this is John. This is where your area of expertise.
Yeah.
And wait back a little bit. You might lose. You will make more money at UK than you will in the NBA. Then you ride your 4 years out. After that one more year of college, same thing with Moreno. Then you get that big post-rookie contract, and you're set for 3 generations.
Well, I think the interesting thing about this is what we just said is that if you go to Louisville, I don't know there's not enough minutes. There's not enough basketballs to throw out there.
Exactly.
All the guys that they have. There's not enough. There may be a ton of money that gets thrown at you, but at the same time, what does it matter if you're going to sit on the bench and not get 25 minutes a night?
Right.
And then same kind of goes for Florida. They're bringing back their entire team that was
they just brought another guy back today.
Yeah, and so Chinlaru is coming back today. He announced he withdrew from the NBA, but then there's not enough balls to roll out on the court there either. Money may not be a factor there. So I really believe it's kind of down to St. John's and Kentucky. And, do you like Mark Pope style? Do you like Rick Pitino's style? They're very similar in nature. I mean, that he learned under Rick Pitino. So I don't know. I'll say this, and John, you can back me up on this. If you go to St. John's, you're going to pay significantly more in personal income taxes than what you would pay in Lexington, Kentucky. Think about that, young man. If you want to come to college, right, and you want to save yourself millions of dollars, you don't play in New York City. You don't do it. You come to the University of Kentucky, and those state income taxes make a difference. And we need to be harping on that as
Wandale Robinson.
Wandale Robinson is a great example. Going to playing down in Nashville with the Titans, and he's going to save himself $9 to $11 million over the term of that contract just by playing in a different city.
That's all, yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. There's no difference in the contract language, but he's going to save himself $9 to $11 million by playing in Nashville versus New York.
John, if you were an agent for an NBA player, would you want your player to play in California or New York because of their tax structure?
I wouldn't. I mean, it would. They've got the same tear on their knees, the same tear on their shoulders, the same but to make more money to do the exact same job, I mean, especially like in California and and we were talking about Washington State, all those places, to hear the NFL guys lost money to actually go and play a game there. To me, it's just absolutely that doesn't even make sense. And so no, I would definitely tell people, and you're seeing that. People that that they may have a house in that state, but it's their second house. Their main house is now in Florida, Texas, Tennessee. Right. That's where they're domiciled. They may own a house still in California, sure, but they're not. That's not where they live. That's where their tax structure is.
LeBron,
so, it makes a difference.
LeBron makes $60 million, and Kyle and I were talking about this yesterday.
35 million of it goes to this.
Yeah, he loses 60% of that to taxes because half the games he plays in L.A. Then he's got the Clippers and Golden State and Portland to play those games in, and then I guess they'll play the Knicks once a year on around Christmas or something. So he is losing so much money. I just and the NBA players are now publicly starting to talk about that. How many millions are losing to taxes in these high tech states, and they're saying no, we don't want to go there. And like Luka, he's already talking about leaving California to go anywhere else, leaving the Lakers to go anywhere else, not to win or lose, but to get some money.
That's why we said the sports teams in Florida and Texas and Tennessee are all of a sudden going to become very, very popular places to go play.
Absolutely.
Because these guys are like, I'm going to make the same amount of money. And if all the good guys go to these places, in Oklahoma, places like that, you're looking at real wealth right there that you're saving.
Yeah, the top of the NBA for the next 8 to 10 years is OKC, San Antonio, and Houston. Those are going to be the three main teams down the road because they're all young. And
I would throw in there that you're going to have Miami and Orlando. And
I'm just talking about the ones that exist today.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that those teams will start to get very good as well.
Oh, yes, they will. They'll start getting superstars down there.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Anything you guys want to add before we hop out of here tonight?
John,
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me back in. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us.
Promote something you're doing, John.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Tell us about the Humane Society. How can people help with the Humane Society?
Sure. So the Humane Society, it's a great place. It really is. We have a new facility. If you haven't seen the new facility, please go by. See it on Companion Place Drive. It's a great thing. Most of the thing we have in the community right now, we have our spay neuter clinics. We have stuff like that. Just look on the website. You can always look to see what animals we have on there. It's great. Plus, and of course, if make sure you vote in November. Should always vote in November.
That's right.
That's one thing. Regardless if you vote or not, and I would prefer if you voted for me if you're in the 5th district.
That's right.
But at a minimum, go out and vote. It's your constitutional right. You should vote.
5th District Magistrate in Franklin County. Make sure you get out and vote. We talked about that earlier.
My district.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier tonight. There's a lot of people who didn't vote in the primary for all of their own reasons, but go out there and vote and make sure that you exercise that right. One last thing, a lot of people are making comments. Rest in peace, Kyle Busch, and
I got one more thing
to that family as well. Yeah, Craig.
What number of days could Kentucky change? University of Kentucky basketball. How many days till their future could change? 6.
Oh, it's 6 days. We are
6 days.
6 days. 6 days and 6 hours.
Yeah, till was it 11:59 on the 27th?
Yeah, 11:59 on.
That's coming up quick, and that was the first thing I thought about this morning. We're another day closer, and I grabbed my phone up while I was in bed, and looked for the sports stuff to see if there were any announcements.
I will tell you now that you're seeing guys like Chinrilu and those guys pulling out. They will not wait until next Wednesday.
Yeah.
So if there's news that comes across our phone. or we get any messages, we will hop on and let you know.
Florida is loaded.
Yeah, Florida's going to be
Right. Brian Bolliard is Florida loaded. This guy keeps sending me Florida stuff.
Well, let's hope that their coach decides to go somewhere else and
yeah,
isn't there. So
it's just it's going to be an exciting time for the next 6 days.
It will. It will.
For UK fans.
We will keep you all posted as well. That's going to do it for us tonight. We covered a lot of ground, from major political controversies and fallout across the country to federal fraud investigations, global health concerns, and then a deep dive into what's becoming a fascinating summer for Big Blue Nation with Kentucky football, recruiting heating up, and the latest twists in UK basketball. As always, the headlines move fast, the narratives change even faster, and our goal is to cut through all of that noise and give you the facts, the context, and the conversations between the stories. A huge thank you to our friend John Hibbard. Thank you for coming on and joining us. I hope you make it a regular occurrence. It's always fun to have a third voice, not just me and Craig in our echo chamber talking back and forth, shouting into the wind. Make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the stream, and make sure you click on that little bell notification as well, so you can be notified every time we're about to go live. And we will try to keep all of the information above just the headlines. Drop your thoughts in the comments about anything that we talked about tonight. Can Kentucky football take a step forward under Will Stein? Would you pay Milan Momcilovic $6 million? And who should become the next AD at Kentucky, along with all of the news stories that we talked about? We always love hearing from Big Blue Nation and from all of you across the country about all of these news stories. So until next time, stay informed, stay sharp, stay above the noise. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow.